Hi, I'm Senator Malcolm Roberts and I'm back in Mackay after an enthralling day at Keswick Island listening to people over there. The residents have some shocking stories. It really is a microcosm of the whole of our country. Now, we made a video with a group of them together and they really tell us some startling facts about what's going on under Chinese ownership of Keswick Island. This is Australia and today is Australia Day. It's hard to believe that this is happening. But this, as I said, is a summary of what's happening around Australia under state and federal governments. Now, the video starts a bit slowly because people are a little bit nervous, but you should listen, please do, to what they start discussing. It's amazing what's happening in our country right here in Australia. Hi, I'm Senator Malcolm Roberts and I'm in Keswick Island with some of the residents of Keswick Island. And we've come over here to learn and to listen, and who better to hear from than the people themselves. Who's going to tell us the background to what's going on? James, Craig?
Right, well...
Give us a bit of a history, please, James.
Okay, I've owned a property here since 2003, 2004. I actually own a second property here. We built a house here with my brother, so we share it. And we've been here for the last 17 years living on the island. Look, every head lessee has had their difficulties, but we have found that since China Bloom has taken over, everything's really gone to pot. They're really trying to force us off the island. The attitude towards all the residents has been very poor at best. We've been told that we have to fill in forms to even come to our own residence on the island.
Forms?
You have to fill in a form and give them 24 hours notice to come to the island. And you have to tell every person, you have to fill in the form and tell everybody who is coming with you, have to fill in the form to come to your own house on the island.
Do they not know this is Australia?
Well, that's what I actually wrote to them, and after telling them that I wouldn't be doing it, I also informed them that it was extremely un-Australian to be asking something like this. They persisted with it. Even 2 weeks ago, we received another letter saying, you guys are not doing what we've instructed you to do, and you've got to fill in forms. I just am ignoring all.
Is there any condition in the lease under which you signed in the first place? So you're all lessees, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then what's happened? When did China Bloom take over?
China Bloom took over in around about 2019, May, June. I actually was overseas at the time, traveling, and I got an email informing me that we weren't allowed to Airbnb anymore. So you had been running an Airbnb? We'd been running an Airbnb. We had the reviews, as you can see, this place is outstanding, had been from all over the world, just saying what an incredible place it was. You know, people from Switzerland, and we still got the reviews, you know, from America, obviously a lot from Australia, just saying how wonderful it was. It is wonderful. We had a whole lot of bookings going forward, and they said they gave us 7 days to block everybody coming to the island on our Airbnb. I wrote them a very polite letter saying, look, I'm overseas. I'm not going to argue with you about whether you're right or wrong not allowing us to run an Airbnb. However, I have all these forward bookings going through to December. May I please use them? And they came back and said no. At that point, I did write them a fairly terse letter saying, again, I didn't think this was very Australian, and I didn't think they actually had very much moral or sentimental value for people that have arranged and booked their holidays to come here, and now I had to give them 7 days notice to cancel.
Well, just down on the beach and driving up here with Tim, I heard some pretty shocking stories. You wouldn't believe we're in Australia. So what are some of the restrictions they've put on people here, capriciously?
Well, restrictions are having to fill in a form to come here. Not allowed to use the barge ramp anymore, which we've been using for the last 12 years.
So that's the way you get supplies in?
Correct. Not allowed to fly in anymore. They put out a statement to say the aerodrome's open. Well, you would have maybe seen it today. There's a big cross on the aerodrome and there's an excavator on it. So I'm not too sure how they expect a plane to land on an open aerodrome with the excavator parked on the runway.
Yeah, it would be difficult.
It is.
Unless you had a helicopter, which they have.
So they have been coming in with a helicopter. It costs $1,300 one-way flight. So a round trip's $2,600. But again, that hasn't happened for the last month or so. The helicopters aren't even coming in.
And you've got a pilot on this island?
We've got three.
Yes, we've got 3 pilots.
Craig?
Yes.
Rainer,
how many times have you landed here?
1,305 times.
1,305 times he's landed on the Earth.
Without incident. And the day they took over, I was given 12 hours to get my plane off the island.
So there's nothing unsafe about the airstrip?
Not at all. It's not an easy airstrip, but I maintain if you can't land on that airstrip, you shouldn't be flying.
How many accidents on the airstrip?
There's been one accident by a young commercial pilot back in
2007.
2007.
And there was an incident about fuel or something I read from your media release?
Yes, they gave me this 12 hours, no reason given at the time of why I couldn't fly here. And we commute to Mackay. We had businesses back then. And so the incident was my plane was parked right down next to the residence, the manager's residence, and my fuel tanks were drained. Drained, totally drained.
And from what I read in the media release, you got the bungs or drainages replaced and checked, and I obviously couldn't fly, so I jumped in the boat, some jerry cans, went to Mackay, got some avgas, came back, put in the plane, flew to Mackay, flew straight to the engineers and asked them to remove my valves and put new ones in and check them to see if there's anything wrong with them. And just, no, there's nothing wrong with the old ones. So they were drained?
They were drained, yep.
And right next to the manager's house for China Bloom?
Yeah, interestingly enough, yeah.
What about this then? I've grilled some academics about the reef regulations that the government of the state has put in, and there's nothing to base those reef regulations on. And those reef regulations are destroying farming and communities on the mainland. But over here, you've had instances of environmental vandalism, environmental breaches of the law, and you've reported them to the state government and nothing's happened? And you have a submission for how many breaches?
I'm not sure how many breaches are in there, but there's a lot.
Probably 20.
Yep,
20 breaches. So to be clear here, the government, the Queensland government keeps saying it's not a dispute with them. So let's be very clear here. You have a Queensland government and a lease agreement between them and the head lease. That's an agreement. Like any agreement, when you go and buy a company or buy a car, there's an agreement with a whole lot of clauses in there. These are all the clauses that they are not adhering to, and that's why we're approaching the government to say, you're not adhering to these clauses. However, the government keeps saying, no, this is a dispute between the head lease and the sublessee. We don't have a dispute there. There's a dispute between what the government should be governing and...
So the key issue is one of governance between the leaseholder, who is breaking the law and breaking their lease conditions, and nothing happening about it.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
And the big question, Malcolm, is why? Why are they not?
Why is the government not doing anything?
If that was done on the mainland by an Australian, there'd be major consequences.
Okay.
Right? Why are they not addressing it? That's what we want to know.
Just to cut it down into very simple language, the very first condition of that head lease says this island must be used for aerodrome, marine, tourism, and residential purposes. The second sentence of that head lease says, if it is not used for those purposes, the head lease must be rescinded.
Wow. And
so
nothing's happened.
Let's just see. Are they using it for aerodrome? No, they're not. Are they using it for marine purposes? No, they're not. Are they using it for tourism purposes? No, definitely not. They're even stopping the Airbnb.
Yeah.
And are they using it for residential? Well, they're doing their best to throw us off.
And business too.
So did you want to say something either?
And business was in the list of things
You can't
that should
run a
be
business on your
allowed.
own home.
What do you mean, Brian?
Because they say you're in breach of your lease, you cannot have a business on this island. I had a business for 12 years. We started from scratch. I had two other partners.
What was the business?
Clearing the blocks of land, which they are now doing through their own means. They have like 4 guys who used to come here and clear the blocks of land. I used to do that by myself for a number of years. And when China Bloom took over, I already had previous head lessees, 2 of them, Vince Alexander and KDPL, who gave me permission to run my business. China Bloom didn't give me permission to run the business, they just forced me to shut it.
No consultation?
And now all that work is generated through Brett Kerr and his girlfriend, Sandy, through T Trendy, who now provide the labour through her company, so he's making the money I used to get.
Right.
So it's a conflict of interest, I think.
So they're telling you who you can use or can't use for tidying your yard maintenance.
Yeah,
But
we
So
can't go
Brian-
and hire Brian to clear our
Brian probably did my block for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to get contractors from the mainland.
no, it's a fair way.
Get
Because
$1,300 a flight.
You know,
Was-
we
yeah.
used to fly contractors in, for example, pest control in our houses. They'd fly in the morning, do a couple of houses and fly back in the afternoon. And it was affordable, you shared the cost. Now you can't fly them in, so what options do you have?
So it's very hard just to even maintain your land.
Correct.
And there are some stunning locations here, fabulous views.
Could I just jump in about the helicopters and getting over the island? Because at Christmas time I was going to come over.
Come and speak into the microphone, please, Tim.
Well, I'm just going to prompt you and then you can ask. But just getting the number to book the helicopter, you can't find it anywhere. I was talking to you about that and thinking,
So the
I had to
sole
ask
means-
you guys for the number because I couldn't find it anywhere.
So the sole means of aviation access now is helicopter, and Tim was telling me he couldn't get the number to get the helicopter booked.
That's because you've got to ring Brett Kerr.
I've contacted Whitsunday Helicopters twice via email from their website, never answered me, not once.
You see, and what's happened with this manager that's running the island now, he's ended up, because he thinks he's king of the castle, he has friendships. So people that are nice to him, he'll allow them to come through on a helicopter. But either he doesn't like, so he just won't return the call.
So it costs you a lot more to get the same services done,
Almost
or if you can get them.
Yeah, you
Well,
can't get it.
it's unaffordable for, a lot of us are retired. It's unaffordable to pay $1,300 to go, do your shopping and another $1,300 to come back.
People have even asked for back flights. When the helicopter's been here, they said, can we get a flight back over for medical emergencies? Not emergencies, but medical. No.
Yeah, we were told that there were some seats available on helicopters for about $100.
But only for friends.
But not for residents.
So they're trying to throw you off the island by the look of it. They're trying to restrict what you can do. They're also interfering with you socially. Tim was telling me about the Christmas tree that's been decorated by the kids here for the last 12 years. I think, Tim, was it 12 years?
Decorated.
Well, yeah, when you say kids, I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Kids at heart, is it? Okay.
Like Aaron.
Kids at heart. Okay. And who chopped the tree down?
Well, the workers that were here, they were instructed.
They were instructed to do it. They said they didn't want to.
No,
They told you they didn't want to cut it down, but they were told to.
it was a small tree, but a huge principle. So that was just to get to us. That's the only reason they did it.
And then they cut that huge Mackay cedar down.
Yeah, and they cut a
But
beautiful
no
big.
reason
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
No, they did say it was because it was growing out of a bank. But
There's one on the end of the island doing the
Yeah.
same thing.
no, but don't they understand
That
that
holds
if
it
you've got
together.
a tree there, it holds it together. I mean, halfway down the hill, you can see where there are no
Yes.
trees. You've got a huge landslide.
Well, speaking of trees in the environment, there's I saw something in your media release about the turtles as well. What's going on there?
Just before you go to the
big
turtles,
story.
it's interesting that
Cole? Yep.
yeah, it's interesting that the Christmas tree was chopped down. So, they've basically shown us their environmental credentials or their lack of. We've got a 1,000-year-old cycad here on the island. So that was planted, or that grew, when the Leaning Tower of Pisa was being built back in 1,000 years ago. So, if they don't look after the local environment, whether it's on land or on the reef, how are they going to be trusted to look after a 1,000-year-old cycad?
Right, and you've made, in your submission to the state government, you've made comments about their environmental vandalism or environmental destruction. Can you tell us about some of them, because that's what Cole's touching on?
Yeah. Well, the main one that sort of kicked it all off was the grading of the beach. So, we witnessed a big telehandler on the beach, literally.
Telehandler is
It's a big grader type.
Like a grader.
earth moving? Okay.
Earth-moving equipment. And they basically took all the dune structure and they flattened it. So from the tree line all the way down to the beach was just a nice gentle slope.
They pushed all the sand up to the bank.
Yeah, I have no idea what the
motivation was.
purpose is. I think maybe it's to get hours up on the telehandler. I don't know. But in doing that, up near the beach hut there's information about these precious dune creatures that live there and don't destroy their habitat and look after the turtles. It's a turtle nesting habitat.
So there's a sign saying that.
There's signs there. Yeah, there's signs all over. There's 3 different signs advising people about all this, all this stuff that happens in the dune, and they go and they spread it all out evenly just before turtle nesting season. So a couple of years ago we were here and we witnessed turtle tracks coming up the beach and where a turtle had tried to lay a nest, but of course there was no dune, so of course the next high tide just washed straight over the top of it. And this has been going on for some years.
And there's big sightings of turtles too. And one that was obviously big, heavy, and tired, and it obviously laid some eggs.
Yeah. Anyway, we reported that. Karen reported it.
I put a submission together with 3 affidavits of people who saw the telehandler and saw the turtle nest and the inundation. And photos, and I said these are location, time, and date stamped photos, and I submitted it to the Ian Hutchinson.
Who's he?
He was the chief whip. Ian Hutchins. He's the chief whip for Anastasia Palaszczuk. Went down to his
he's a
office.
Labour Party MP.
Yes. I submitted it to the Department of Environment and Science, and I submitted it to Grumpa.
Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority.
And can I just add there, it was Ian Hutchins requested James do that.
He did request me to do it.
So they know about it, requested details, given them details, nothing's happened.
And then he came back and said, I can't deal with it. There was something that was quite strange happened, and he just said, I can't deal with this. You've got to deal with the Department of Environment.
I think he's Anastasia Palaszczuk's chief of staff.
He was, but
he's not
an MP. I think he's
not an MP, so he's not a whip.
He was the chief of staff.
He's a bureaucrat.
He's a bureaucrat.
But after 6 months, the Department of Environment Science came out, walked up and down the beach and said they can't see any evidence of turtles or turtle nesting, so therefore it never happened.
Well, firstly, 6 months is in June.
Yeah,
Turtles don't nest in June. They actually nest in December. I can't imagine a government institution whose task is to look after our Great Barrier Reef, and they do that.
So this is Gabrumpa that did this?
This was the Department of Environment and Science.
And what was Gabrumpa, the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authorities?
They've just kept very quiet.
Apparently their jurisdiction is below the low water mark. And Mackay Regional Council is above the high water mark, and who knows who's in between.
Well, how's the council been on this issue?
Extremely poor,
But
I
they
think.
that it shouldn't be them, it should be somebody else.
So everyone's going, it's
Yeah,
them.
exactly. We've actually had 6 meetings with the council over the last few years.
And nothing.
Well, they did come out here a couple of months ago because there was a lot of things that were being built without permits, without engineering, and that, which is their department. So they did address that. To what degree, we're not really sure. But we are disappointed with their report.
So the Gabrumpa Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority is a federal agency, I think. So they've not done anything that you're aware of. No. They certainly haven't got back to you. The state Premier's Department, the state Environmental Department, state agencies have not done anything about it, and the local council hasn't done anything about it.
Correct.
So you're stuck on your own facing these people.
Yeah.
See, we've written to the new Resources Minister, Scott Stewart, through the member for Mackay.
How long ago?
Julianne Gilbert, just after Christmas, requesting a meeting with the new minister to try and clarify some of these issues. Now, a new minister coming into a portfolio, sure, he's going to be a little bit in the dark. So wouldn't you think it would be wise for him to say, okay, I've heard China Bloom's version of this, surely I should go and hear what residents have to say. Now, there's been no response whatsoever from the Minister's office or from Julianne Gilbert's office to our request for a meeting. And I sent that letter away not only as a member of the Keswick Island Progress Association, but as an island resident. So that's where it's disappointing.
And so Julianne Gilbert, the member for Mackay, she's responsible for this area? She's
no,
your rep?
She's not. No.
Who is your rep?
It's actually a weird situation because Mackay Regional Council are responsible for the building and environmental things on the island, but the actual rep is with Sundays.
So that's Amanda Cam.
Amanda Cam, yeah.
Has she done anything about it?
Unfortunately not. She did.
She stood up in Parliament, I think, in December and read out a letter, but we haven't heard anything.
She was very active in helping us initially, but we haven't
That was
heard much.
before the election?
Haven't heard much from her at all.
Since the election, nothing.
No.
But realistically, all we need is maybe 3 or 4 key groups to get together around a table. We need China Bloom, we need the residents, we need the government, and possibly a local member or council to sit around a table and say, these are our 5 or 6 main issues, how can we resolve them? But there's been no appetite for that whatsoever.
Okay. Tell me something more about the boat ramp that was built down there, the previous boat ramp that was denied access to, and I read somewhere, I think in your media release, that this new boat ramp, which is pretty small, was built, you think, without approval?
I think we know.
That.
There was no engineering, there was no permits.
No environmental impact study. And this is actually all in the head lease. This is what they say they should be doing.
That the Queensland government should be enforcing?
Yes.
Yep.
So none of that was done. They built the first road basically on the high water mark or just below. I can take you down and show you. They threw tyres in there. They threw topsoil from another illegal road in there. And it's all just washed into the sea. You can see the tyres sitting half.
And now,
can you imagine if I even just left a single tyre on the beach in Mackay?
And you can't use single-use plastic bags anymore without
Correct.
paying for them.
Yeah.
But yet they're letting plastic
take
try
you
and
down
stop
there
the
and
road and get into the ocean.
So let me
The thing
say,
is, there was a spring tide 2 days after they did that, and within 2 days, it was half gone onto the reef. And James has done a fantastic video underwater showing the silt on the coral and how the coral around that area
it's absolutely devastating.
is devastated.
Yeah.
I think the other important thing to note is that the Department of Resources, through one of their key bureaucrats, have actually identified that the so-called new boat ramp is not fit for purpose.
Exactly right.
That was the Department of Resources stated
Can I
that.
just backtrack a bit? When a couple of head lessees ago, probably around 2008 or so, one of the head lessees approached the Queensland state government and said he couldn't afford to build the marina. And
So was the lease part of the condition was
they
building a
have
marina?
to build a marina.
Where's the marina?
Precisely. So he couldn't do that. So they came to an agreement with him that he would provide a public boat ramp and a public jetty, both free of charge for the public to use. And the barge ramp, the so-called barge ramp, was the public boat ramp that was built. And it was properly engineered and everything was done correctly through the council. And that was the ramp that was given to us to use. And at the same time, they did build a jetty at that point. It wasn't properly maintained and...
That's the one with the 2 black posts?
Yes.
Yeah.
The actual walkway has been taken back, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Correct.
So it's unusable.
Yeah, there's
Well,
no jetty.
we're not allowed to go there.
Yeah.
They've cut that off for us.
Then when China Bloom came along, they made the airstrip an exclusion zone, and they said your free public boat ramp, you may not access that anymore, and now suddenly it's become only a barge ramp and not designed as a boat ramp. And we'll just build you another one. But it literally took them 2 months to build that other one. And just,
Totally illegal. Everything's illegal.
Yeah, a backdoor job.
So tell me about the national park. How much of the island is leased by China Bloom? How much is national park? How much is freehold?
15%.
Is it 20%?
85% national park. And restriction. I've read that the access to the national park has been restricted, and that's illegal, isn't it?
That's what I keep saying to the DNR. It is illegal. Actually, it says so in the lease again.
Yeah.
It says in the lease, it refers to clause 373. Is that right?
343.
343. It says refer to this deed of agreement, and in that deed of agreement, it clearly states access to certain areas of national park. And we brought this up with the DNR, and they said, it's not part of our head lease agreement. And we said, here is the head lease agreement. And they said, but it doesn't clearly state that we have to adhere to that.
What?
Yeah.
When you sign an agreement, there has to be a clause in there that says you must agree to it before
Why?
you...
Put the clause in.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So China Bloom also claim, this is in your media release, the majority of them, being you guys, are in breach of their leases. And you've said that is not the case. Do you want to expand on that so that people can hear?
Well, I think what they're referring to is the people that haven't built their houses.
And one of them being Glenlee Smith.
One of them being Glenlee Smith, who just put out a recent pro media for China Bloom.
But
Never
it is
lived
in
here,
their pocket.
never built on his house,
Yeah.
but he works for them. So,
Okay.
sorry, Glenn.
What about the? Well, if it's fact, you don't have to apologise. What about the people who've been trying to sell their houses? Well, first of all, what's happened to the value of the properties here now since China Bloom has taken over and done these behaviours? And secondly, what is happening to the properties that you're trying to sell? Some people are trying to sell.
Well, our property values have gone down. This house here has gone down about probably 75%.
Yeah, 75, 80% I heard.
Yep.
Decrease back to about 20% of what it was worth.
So just to give you an example, properties, I picked up a real dead bargain on the property at 137,000. So they range between about 130,000 and 450,000 for the property, blank property here.
Yep.
Some of the lessees are handing it back at this stage.
And there's someone trying to sell, I think, and someone trying to buy his property, but they can't settle.
Well, Lee is in that position.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, we went to contract on another...
Speak up a bit to the microphone.
We went to contract on a property about 6 months ago, and it has to go to the Minister's office to be signed off on, which went through no problem. Went to China Bloom to be signed off, nothing. Then next thing you know, our solicitor gets a big list saying that we want this done and we want $100,000 security bond, right, to make sure that you fix the solar power, a couple of minor things which would be nowhere near $100,000 anyway. But they don't want to sign off. Where the second people, there's more people that are trying to do the same thing. And China Bloom just will not assign the contracts. Yet, in the lease agreement, it states that they will not impede on the sale. They are not to impede on the sale of the property.
Right.
And
So they're breaking the lease agreement again.
They are.
So also in your media release it says China Bloom claims that it describes the residents and subleases as anti-development. You've put up a counter to that. What is the reality? Are you anti-development?
No,
Absolutely.
Not in the least.
I can see that.
we don't want to lose money.
Not in the least. So, many of their statements, if not all of them, were absolutely, at best, I would say factually incorrect. I don't want to use the L word, but that's how I would say that. How can they say there are no turtles on the island?
Well,
how can they say there's no aerodrome? The aerodrome's been open for a year.
Strikes me, James, as either they're extremely incompetent or they're lying.
Well, that's the way I would say it.
That's my
It might
interpretation.
strike me the same way.
That's my conclusion.
What we are anti is anti-development that hasn't been approved and properly engineered and designed, because that just ends up as a disaster.
I don't think we want development at any cost. We want a sustainable island that people can live in harmony, and it's not just residents. It's for all Queenslanders.
How many of you people are here?
All Australians.
How many of you people are here to make a quick buck, or how many people are here to stay and enjoy yourselves for a long time?
It's a lifestyle.
That's what comes through very, very clearly.
And too, Malcolm, when we first all bought our land here, the future development at that stage was fantastic, wasn't it? Peter Marshall, the original head lessee, had a fantastic, it was an eco type development, and that's what we bought into. And it's never arrived. Unfortunately, Peter couldn't hold on to the head lease. He had other issues, and it was taken off him by the bank. But he had a fantastic vision, and it's just a shame that the next three head lessees, which the state government chose, have not worked out.
But saying that, the only development on this island, all the houses were built during Prince Alexander's time.
Yeah.
There was nothing proposed while KDPL were here, and there's been nothing since China Bloom took over.
Okay.
I think, you as a senator in the Australian government, I think this is an opportunity for you too to have a look at the original sale to China Bloom. Now, who is China Bloom? What entity does China Bloom have? What resources, what equity do they have in China Bloom? Is it just a shelf company? Is it a $2 company in Hong Kong? You know, that we've tried to find this information, but, you know, you as a senator and George Christensen as our local member, I would say that you would have a better chance than us to determine this.
That's actually property titles and so on. That's actually a state government responsibility, but I'll see what my office can do anyway.
I think that there should be an overview of just what's happening all around us here. It's because it's affecting Australia.
Right.
You look at all the islands that have been sold to Chinese around here. I think there's 6 aren't there now, Jim?
5, I think, yeah.
5.
What are they?
St Bees,
Yeah,
Keswick
next door.
Island, Lindeman, South Mole, Daydream Island, and another big one that people don't think of is Laguna Keys, which is on the mainland. It's a big property. There's a big resort, marina, and there's
an airport.
It's an unfinished 3-kilometre airstrip on there.
That's the key. Is
That's
it?
the key.
Laguna Keys, think of it this way, is Laguna Keys is very key. It's a 3-kilometre, we measured it the other day, 3-kilometre landing strip which can land international jets. They have a huge harbour there that's beautifully developed. And coming from overseas, you just land there. You don't even have to visit anywhere in Australia. You go straight from Laguna Keys to the harbour, out to all these different islands.
So it's getting close to wrap up time. So China Bloom accuses some of the residents of building non-compliant illegal structures, but in response, you said the only non-compliant and illegal structures have been built by the island manager themselves. And you pointed out 2 specific examples, the temporary illegal boat ramp and the manager's new double-storey residence.
Yeah.
Built without approval, the structure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if you did that in Mackay, the council would make you pull it down.
And we don't know about the toilets they put in the shop either.
So we go back to that original question what Craig was saying. Why is the government not doing something about it? Why? We'd like to know why this has just been pushed under the rug.
This has got atrocious governance and loss of sovereignty stamped all over it.
Yes.
The government of this state has got so many things to address. You're saying, I'll just quote it here, it is our position that, number 1, the head lessee must use the leased land for commercial business purposes being tourism, residential, marine facility, marine works and aerodrome purposes. And then, number 2, this lease may be forfeited if not used for the purpose stated above. Let's finish by saying, what do you want?
On to forfeit the lease.
Yes.
Yep.
They're not doing their job. It's as simple as that.
And get a head lessee who has some interest in actually doing something.
And that's actually touching on another point. We have 3 Australian investors who were shut out of this latest purchase.
Shut out.
Shut out. And
Absolutely.
they've told, 2 of those people have told me personally.
And
So
another one,
Australian investors were shut out in
this.
favour of a Chinese investor
Correct.
who is not fulfilling the
Yes.
lease conditions.
Yes.
Yep.
And nothing's been done about it.
Yes.
And I
Well, that
think
raises huge questions. That's exactly what you talked to me
we're
about.
asking. What assets do these people have to develop this island? If it's a shelf company sitting in Hong Kong, where are they getting their money from? Are they getting it from within China? Are they getting it from the Chinese government? Are they getting it from the Communist Party?
We need some serious investigative reporting done on this. We need some digging to find out what's behind it all.
We want to know what Anastasia Palaszczuk, what is she hiding from us, you know?
Okay.
Just
and
briefly
anything
then,
else
well,
quickly?
that's true. Why doesn't the state government meet with us face to face? Like we've met with Durham.
Tell the camera.
We've met with Durham. Why doesn't the state government, why doesn't the minister meet with us and go through the issues that we've raised? What are they scared of?
And I'll just finish up by saying that no one's raised this with me, but I want to make it very clear, none of these people are endorsing me or One Nation. They're just independent citizens, correct?
Yes.
So I want to make that very clear. We're not here to do this politically, but I am in the sense that I'm very disappointed in the state government because it's clearly dropped the ball.
Can I just say one other thing is that, so what is the motive behind all this? I would suggest that the motive behind it is to force us off the island, buy our properties up at a basement price,
Or take it
and
over.
then we'll take it, whatever, or then bring in Chinese people. In China, there's 372 billionaires. There's 4.4 millionaires.
4.4 millionaires.
Yeah, unbelievable. You know, like this is, you know, we don't have that wealth.
But that reminds me, some of you people are here as a result of your superannuation investments, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So that's been destroyed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Lifestyle's been destroyed.
And
this is just basic human living.
This is, as James said and Craig said earlier at the start of this video, this is happening right around the country. This is not just a Keswick Island issue. This is a Queensland issue and an Australian issue.
It's probably a global issue, isn't it?
Maybe.
If you look around, you look what's happening in China at the moment with Vietnam. They're building walls between China and Vietnam. So are they building walls to keep people in or to keep people out?
I don't know, but we need to make sure we have a political system that maintains our sovereignty and our government. And I want to thank you very much. Thank you for the host for your wonderful residence.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, I thank you for standing up and fighting. As I say, this is not political. It's about sovereignty and Australia. And some people say I'm, from the southern tip of Africa and I shouldn't be here. I'm more Australian than a lot of people like these people down there at the runway.
We welcome anyone, any colour, any religion, so long as they comply with their values, uphold their laws, and fit in with our philosophy in this country.
I would just hope that your visit today led to you actually writing to the Queensland government on our behalf, asking the pertinent questions we've put. Because we're not getting a response anywhere else.
Well, George has helped us. George Christensen has helped us.
If it's any reassurance, we've asked the Premier for data behind some of her policies. She's pointed us to 2 areas, no data. So these guys are just winging it, in my experience. But we have come here to listen, to try and understand. One of our staff, who is a lawyer, will be getting in touch with you.
We hope you can help us with our basic human rights.
Yeah, hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. All right, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.